Hi, my name is Mikael Owunna, and I am a queer Nigerian-Swedish American photographer. There's a lot of hyphens there, but the core of the work that I'm working on right now is a project called Limitless on LGBTQ African immigrants, specifically in North America and Europe. And I've been working on it for 3 years now. And I guess the core, the reason of why I started this work is because I am queer and Nigerian. And specifically, growing up, I really struggled with these two identities and holding them at the same time. And this was partially because of just a lot of conservatism and religion, but what I've learned now is that a lot of it's connected to a longer history of colonization and erasure. My story begins when I was like around 13 years old, and that's when I realized that I was queer. You know, when you realize it, you come out to yourself. But I was outed when I was 15 to my parents, and I just started a kind of a cascade of really, really negative experiences and events that ultimately culminated with me being put through a series of exorcisms in Nigeria. So my parents brought in these priests. The priests like put their hands on me, you know, screaming the Bible, all that stuff. And then they also brought in a traditional healer, and the traditional healer put me through a series of spiritual baths where she would pour oil over me that would like burn my skin as it washed over me to wash the devil out of me. And the devil being a gay person, being a queer person, right? And so that's something that kind of sticks with you. You know, I was 18, 19 at the time, and it made me feel like I couldn't be queer and Nigerian. And it made me really insecure about my identity as a Nigerian person. And for a few years, I just didn't do anything. I ran away from everything Nigerian, everything African. I wanted nothing to do with Africanness, African people, other Africans, everything. You know, being African has always been a part of me. You know, it's part of who I am. Being Nigerian is a part of who I am. It's a huge part of my identity. You know, like my favorite food is like pounded yam and a goosey soup. You know, all these different things. Like these things are all super important to me. But I felt like I had to let go of them because I was gay. You know, like how ridiculous is that? And so it took me a few years to kind of come to try to figure out how I could be both of these things at the same time. So I finished college. I did a photography project in Taiwan where I worked with Professor Christine Ye of University of San Francisco. And we worked with Taiwanese Aboriginal youth there for a year. And that photography project was my first kind of social justice project. And so that was really exciting. I was like, okay, wait, you can use photography and art as a tool to empower people, to challenge a lot of these dominant narratives. You know, like you don't have to just like I think we just think that art is just something that's pretty, you know, but art can be revolutionary and art can be a space of healing. And when I came back to the US after that experience, which was really, really powerful for me in Taiwan, I was back at home. I was back at home, like in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you know. And when you're in college, you feel like you can be more free. You can just do whatever you want, right? I'm free. But then I was back kind of in that same space from when I was 18 and 19 when I'd been put through those exorcisms again. I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I couldn't get out. And I needed a way to escape, to heal. And for me, I found that like through art. It started like I was just kind of I felt like I was just like I was already depressed because I had a lot of issues with anti-blackness in Taiwan, which had really, really affected me. And so and then I was in that space of the homophobia and everything. I couldn't really be myself. And I one of my friends was visiting Pittsburgh at the time from high school, and she dragged me to the Pittsburgh Carnegie Museum of Art. And at the Carnegie Museum of Art, we were just walking through the exhibit, just walking, walking, walking. And on the wall, as we walk into the main photography exhibition, is just a whole wall of photos of black lesbians in South Africa. And I was like, what the? What's this? What's this? Like, black lesbians in South Africa? In South Africa. Like, and so this is the project by Zanelli Moholi, Faces and Phases. And I was just looking, boom, boom, boom. It was just, I think, 20 or 30 portraits, big portraits on the wall. And I was so moved. I had never, and I think it was crazy for me because I did not realize how much an entire lack of representation had affected me until I saw those images. You know, you don't realize how it feels to never see any experience that looks like you, never see anybody who even remotely resembles you in your experience. You don't know how much of an impact it has until you see something that kind of comes in the ballpark, right? And so when I saw those images by Zanelli Moholi, it just struck a chord with me. And I knew that hunger that I've been looking for, that space of healing that I've been looking for as a queer person, an African person, you know, that I've been feeling so broken about these two identities, that there was healing and that there was a way that I could get out through art, right? There was a way that I could find a way to synthesize these parts of myself in a way that I'd never done before. And so at that point, I went to Duke, because I went to Duke for undergrad. I went to Duke for it was like an arts weekend, and I was telling people, I was like, oh, what do I do? How do I approach projects? And people were just like, just start. And I was like, girl, what? How am I gonna start? Like, I don't know anything. I have no context, and it's crazy because like I grew up in the U.S., so like I only knew two other queer African people. I'd only met two other queer African people my entire life. My entire life. Who am I gonna shoot? Who am I gonna? What are the resources? How do I start? And so um, I just ended up just posting online, like Tumblr, Facebook, be like, yo, if anybody knows anybody, please message me. And through that process, people just started emailing me. I started having these conversations with people. And so at the beginning, it was interesting because I was thinking about doing something that reflected where I was at the time, which was about people's difficult relationships with their parents, talking about strife, and oh my God, I'm queer and African. Oh, my life is so hard. You know, that's what I wanted to do. But talking to people, it kind of brought me to that experience that I had with Zanelli Maholi's work. You know, people, one of the first participants of the project, Tana, she told me about kind of creating this idea of a queer African tapestry, right? I explored style as a way of like expressing ourselves. And that struck a chord with me. And I was like, you know, maybe there is a space of healing that we can explore instead, right? Because I think we're so used to, at least for me, let me speak for myself, I'm so used to, as an artist, you have to almost fight against the white supremacist gaze. It's like, you know, you're taught from the beginning. You're like, okay, you know, you basically try to replicate how white people would view you in your community. At least that's what I was struggling with. And so that's why I was trying to focus on these devastating narratives, right? So like instead it was like, let's focus on fashion and style. Let's create a vision, an emancipatory vision of what a black queer body can look like, right? Let's try to take ourselves out of this space of, you know, focusing on all this pain and think about freedom. You know, I don't think we think enough about freedom. And so my work is about creating visions of emancipation, of creating visions of freedom. And that's how I started the project. It was just starting, these conversations led me to focusing on that space and coming back into that space of synthesis and healing. And also at that time, one of my friends on Tumblr was she's a queer Nigerian woman who does a lot of writing, and she gave me a lot of resources on the history of being queer and African, right? LGBTQ and African. And at the time, I was just like, you know, I'd also listened to people. I was like, oh yeah, you know, everything is about, you know, oh, Africans are so conservative. They've always been so oppressive towards LGBTQ people. And the books tell you something else.